Welcome back to BadgerBlitz TV, your Rivals.com destination for all things Wisconsin athletics. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, joined today by BadgerBlitz.com publisher John McNamara. Good to see you as always, John.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me again, man.
Of course. Now that we're going 2 times a week, it's a lot of fun to talk a little bit about the team. You know, Clint and I focus on recruiting, and we're gonna focus in on a couple of questions we got today. The first of those is from DWM5R in the Badgers Den. Make sure you are subscribed to BadgerBlitz.com to get into the Badgers Den, where we are having all of the best discussions, the best message boards, and the best information around Wisconsin Badgers college football. But they want to know where we think the pass rush is going to come from this year. And so, John, I will ask you not just to name a couple names, but I want you to rank who you think is going to have the most sacks on the team this year.
Yeah, I think this is a good question. And I think maybe the obvious answer is Daryl Peterson. I got a wild card in this. I might go with Jake Chaney. Something tells me that he's going to be on the field in kind of those down and distances where you're going to have an opportunity to get to the quarterback. I don't think there's someone that you can point to and say this is going to be our Nick Herbig this year. So I think it comes in bits and pieces everywhere. But I'll go Chaney is kind of a wild card dark horse to lead the team in sacks this year.
So you've got Chaney as 2019 Chris Orr is what you're telling me.
Yeah, I think his pass rush – obviously as a middle linebacker is maybe going to come more in the middle of the field, but I think they're going to get creative with him. I mean, they're going to get creative with I think a number of different players here, but I do think that from what we've seen from him and, in the spring and in the fall as well, he's a guy that has a knack for getting to that quarterback. He's got that quick burst. And I guess coupled with that, like I said before, I just don't think there's another guy that you can point to and say he's a clear-cut favorite to do it. It might be Peterson. He would make the most sense, but I don't know that that's necessarily his forte or his skill set. So I'll go with Chaney, and we'll see what it looks like in a couple months here.
Well, I'm going to go with Peterson. Like you mentioned, there's a couple reasons. I think it is his forte, John. You look what he did in high school. He was setting Ohio State records in sacks. And at one of the top programs in the country in Hoban. And I think he has the pass rush moves to be the heir apparent to Nick Herbig. I've got him finishing with 9.5 sacks this season. I rounding out my top 5. I've got TJ Bollers finishing second. I think he's had an outstanding spring and fall camp from everything I'm hearing. And his versatility at his size, I think he's going to be playing on a lot of those downs. With his ability to get after the passer. I think he finishes with 5.5 sacks. Rodas Johnson, I think of all the defensive linemen, probably has the best chance along with James Thompson. I've got those two finishing with 5 and 4.5 sacks respectively. And then, like you mentioned, Jake Chaney, 4.5 sacks as well. Because I was just thinking about Chris Orr, 2019, he's been compared to Chris Orr for most of his career. You see it in the size, you see it in the football IQ, and I like Jake Chaney to do some of that. Not as much, though, as you seem to think, John.
Yeah, I guess I'd agree with a lot of that in that it's going to come from a lot of different places. Again, I think it's going to be spread out quite a bit. Look, Hunter Wohler could be a guy who has 5.5 sacks with the way that I think they want to be able to use him all over the field. I mean, that might be a little bit high, but I think he's someone that, they envision doing a lot of different things for them. I don't know if I see as many from the defensive line. That's probably my biggest area of concern or question, going into the first week of the season here. But, it could be from kind of all, You haven't talked about, Jordan Turner, Muma Mjongmeta, there's a number of different guys that I think it could come from. So maybe it's, 7 guys who are in that 4 to 5 sack range, and one maybe is on top of the other. So I think it'll come from a lot of different places, but I just don't see a Nick Herbig here this year for them.
I think the one other name to watch out for is Jeff Pietrowski, the Michigan State transfer. I know that the staff is very high on him as well. I was looking through the Cincinnati defense over the past couple of years, and they've seemed to have had one big name. You look at an Ivan Pace Jr. last year who paced, completely pun intended. I'm not going to say no pun intended. It was completely a pun intended there. The Bearcats last year with, I think, 9.5 sacks. And then you had a ton of guys at like 3 sacks each. Like 6 guys had 3 sacks. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that. But I think Peterson is going to have a big season. And I've got him, like I said, finishing with 9.5 sacks. So this
Well, that's kind of that's unfair that you actually went and did homework on it and
why?
found found a blueprint for it. Yeah, I'm just
Well, one of the other things that this led me to think about was the Badgers receiving core and who is going to lead the team in reception. Because I think the odds on favorites probably Chimere Dike with his experience, with his skill. But there's a lot of guys in the mix. We're hearing a lot of good things about Will Pauling coming out of camp. Bryson Green seems to be having a big camp. So, John, I want your top 5 Badgers in terms of receptions this year.
oh wow. I guess I'll start at the top with Will Pauling, assuming he's healthy and he got a little banged up with his knee. And I don't think they expect that to be something major moving forward. So practices are now shut down, so we're not able to see exactly what's going on. The practice will be shut down now for the season. Obviously, that's pretty normal procedure there. So, assuming that he's healthy, it'd be Pauling for me. That quote from Fongo kind of sticks in my head still about how much he loves slot receivers just as much as his wife and children. So for the guy who's calling those plays, I would imagine he's going to look to the slot receiver quite a bit. And I think Pauling had an excellent spring and a great fall as well. So again, I think that if he's healthy, he's going to see a number of different opportunities there in Wisconsin's offense. Bryson Green would be my second behind him. Didn't play at all in the spring, but it has put together a huge fall and probably I don't know if you could say that with CJ Williams, but maybe the most physically gifted of the group. Maybe Williams is the guy there, maybe 1A, 1B there. DK would probably be my third. CJ Williams 4. And then rounding that out, Skylar Bell, then Keontez Lewis, if I could give you a 6 there. So I feel real, Pauling, Green, DK. I feel good about those 3, and I think the bottom 3 could kind of go in any order that you want to see fit there.
Question for you. Do you think either of the running backs breaks into that top 6 in terms of total receptions?
I don't see it there. And with a guy like Allen, I think Allen can catch the ball in the backfield. And I think one of the clips that they showed from the Sunday scrimmage was Allen catching a pass for a touchdown. So obviously it's there and it's something that they're doing. I just think with the receivers that they have, they're going to be looking to those guys for the receptions. And I think they're going to leave the football to guys like Allen and Malusi. So I don't see that. I think it's going to be coming from the receivers.
Well, I'm with you. I think that Will Pauling will lead the team in receptions because he is going to be operating out of the slot. And if you look at what North Carolina did, especially last year with the Drake May to Josh Downs connection, Downs was operating almost exclusively out of the slot. He had 90 something catches last year. I don't think we're going to see that many out of Pauling, but I've got him hauling in 63 passes. I still think Chimere Dike, because of his ability to get open and his route running skills, will be second ahead of Bryson Green. I think they're going to be pretty close, but I've got Chim finishing with 52 catches, Bryson Green finishing with 47 catches. Bryson Green, like you've said, big physical guy and has been turning 50-50 balls into 80-20 balls all through fall camp. And the reviews are, all very, very positive when we hear about just what he's able to do and the strength of his hands and to fight off defensive backs and really bring down tough contested catches. That's going to make Tanner Mordecai very happy. I think Skylar Bell, sort of as the second slot receiver, will get a fair few touches. I could see him getting 30 plus catches, and then CJ Williams about the same, high 20s, low 30s in total catches. Now, maybe he is a guy that breaks out on game day and really shows off why he was such a highly rated prospect coming out of high school, and he's just a gamer. But I still think some of these other guys will get a couple more consistent targets. I think that Chimere Dike. I think that Ches Malusi will end up 6th in the team in receptions. I think that with all of the eyes on Braylon Allen, all of the eyes on Will Pauling and some of these guys, there's going to be an ability for him to get out in some swing passes, in some quick screens, things like that, and be able to make a name for himself as a true three down back. Because maybe, it looks like Jackson Aker is going to be the third back as of right now, as of what everything we're hearing. I don't think Aker is as natural a pass catcher. I think he's probably the best pass blocker of the group, just because if you look at his frame and look what he's been able to do as a fullback, he's probably going to be a little bit more comfortable blocking. But I see, if they in third down are going, with two backs and no tight ends, I could see Aker doing a lot of blocking with Malusi, splitting out, or not necessarily splitting out, I should say, running out to the flats and being sort of a release valve for Tanner Mordecai. We didn't mention any tight ends, so I will flip
Yeah.
that to you. Which tight end will end up with the most receptions?
Well, I was going to ask you, do you think a tight end will have more than 10 receptions this year? I don't
With
know.
one
I don't
catch
know
a
if I
game.
see it, to be honest.
If it's anyone, it's Hayden Rucci. If it's
Yeah,
anyone, it's
Rucci
Hayden
would be my guy.
Rucci.
I would
I
say
don't know.
Rucci leads a team in receptions this year, but I don't know that gets to double digits. I think his strength is still, as an inline blocking tight end. Look, they're still going to run the football. I think that's going to still be important. Nowakowski's kind of in that same vein. I think his comfort level, or maybe his top strength, is a blocking option. Although we've seen him catch passes in the spring and in the fall as well. Jack Pugh of those three is probably the best pass catching option. He missed a little bit of time for a personal matter back at home. I think he'll be in the rotation. You've heard about Tucker Ashcraft. I don't know that a true freshman's going to come in there and do that. But that's a position with a lot of question marks. And I think when you have two very strong position groups in running back and wide receiver, that Phil Longo is going to scheme for two strong position groups, knowing that there's not a whole lot there at tight end. Had that group been really strong, I think that you've seen in the past where Longo will utilize a tight end. But with as much question marks as you have there, I think the scheme then points towards, let's throw our receivers the football and let's run with our good running backs that we do have there. I don't know how much the tight ends get used this year, although I do think it's an important part of this offense. I don't want to just gloss over to make it like it's not important. I just think that he can plan around his personnel pretty well. We've seen that during his time at North Carolina.
Yeah, I don't know. I will say that Hayden Rucci ends up with 13 catches this year. So yes, we have one tight end that goes into double digit. Hayden Rucci ends up with 13 catches and 4 touchdowns. In the red zone using that
4
big
touchdowns.
yeah, big frame, good ratio for him once they get into the red zone. I think he has the potential to not be a seam stretcher, but to be a seam option. Especially as defenses are going to have to play a little bit lighter with accounting for Will Pauling at all times. He's going to be a big body there in the middle who Mordecai can just going to throw the ball up to, and it's going to be, we will see if he can be more than an inline tight end, which is what he's been so far in his career. But, maybe I'm just wearing Cardinal colored glasses at this point. But I do think that Rucci will end up with more than 10 catches. Okay. Last thing I want to talk to you about here today is the start of high school football in Wisconsin. It's always a very exciting time of year for everyone when football starts, but high school football obviously holds a special place for a lot of people, especially the state of Wisconsin high school football. So, John, what are some of the big things that you are just looking forward to watching this year and, keeping an eye on throughout the fall?
Yeah, high school football in Wisconsin. Excited for. I've been going to games, just about every Friday night for a lot of years. And I started things off. I usually go to scrimmage, so I went last week to watch Arrowhead, Derek Jensen, Garrett Sexton, who's going to Penn State. And I'd also say to keep an eye on. Well, Arrowhead's got a handful of guys that probably keep an eye on. Vance Holt, the quarterback, but I would pay attention this year to Jacob Sinner. He is a sophomore running back, and I know that when I've been talking in past conversations with head coach Matt Harris about Derek Jensen and guys that they've had in the past, he said you got to watch out for this guy too. So early offer from Central Michigan. and I talked to him just briefly at the scrimmage on last Friday, and he said Wisconsin's showing interest there as well. So I think you're running behind two Big Ten tackles, as he'll be doing this year. He has a chance to put up some pretty strong numbers. So, that's like I said, that's where I started this week. So my
Hold
plan's
on, I
got.
want to interject really quickly though, there, John.
Go ahead.
Has Sexton put on weight in this offseason? Because that's always been one of the knocks on him, is that he's really skinny for his frame.
He looks fine. I mean, to be honest with you, he looks like a Big Ten offensive tackle. Now, him and Jensen were paired together in a lot of these drills. So, I came a little bit early just to kind of watch that. And, those both legit 6'6", 6'7" kids. And, Jensen is a bigger kid in comparison to Sexton, but, Sexton looks like he's 270, 275. That whole thing with being able to add the weight, I mean, that's really never been an issue, right? I mean, Wisconsin in the past has taken tackles who are 260, 265, and you can put that kind of weight on him. But, I mean, I don't know how many old bandages you want to rip open here with that. I think he's going to be fine. I don't think
I'm not trying to rip open old bandages. There's people talking about Wisconsin high school football. This particular senior class has been as talked about as any class in recent memory because of all the commitments to, Penn State especially. So it's in the news. We got to talk about it. We can't ignore it, John.
And I agree. I'm just giving a hard time.
Of course.
I didn't think the weight issue was, I didn't think weight was an issue during his recruiting process, and I don't think weight's going to be an issue when he gets to Penn State. I don't think we're going to see a Kevin S. situation where, this guy's a sophomore at Wisconsin. He's listed at like 263 pounds or whatever Estes was. So I think he'll be fine. He'll quickly get to the 300-pound range at Penn State, I would imagine, and be just fine there. So again, I think it's a recruitment maybe Wisconsin wanted to do over, but look, their offensive line class is very good. I asked Derek Jensen about that when I talked, and he said, he wants the guy they're bringing in, in specifically the tackles with him, Kevin Haywood, a guy like Cooperly who could, play tackle, probably a guard, I would say, and then, two interior guys as well. So, that offensive line class is good. I don't think there'll be an issue with Sexton moving forward. I think he'll have a good career at Penn State. And, for my interactions with him, he was always a great kid to talk to. So I hope he does very well there.
Yeah, I think we're all rooting for those kids from the state of Wisconsin, even when they go to a Penn State. So, but speaking of that, obviously Catholic Memorial going to have a lot of big time guys. They have two Penn State kids as well, and Donovan Harbor and Corey Smith, as well as the top player in the state for the class of 2025 in Owen Strebig. They're going to be one of the most talked about programs in the state. So, what else outside of Arrowhead are you looking forward to this fall?
Yeah, Catholic Memorial is certainly on the radar to see Owen. I would say for sure the top in-state player in that 2025 class. That's probably a no-doubter there. I think some people have noticed that I put in a future cast for Notre Dame. Right now, I feel good about that. There's a long way to go in his recruitment, so I don't want to make it seem like he has favorites right now because he hasn't come out and said that. But talking to some people, I feel really good where Notre Dame is right now for him. So, that's a recruitment that Wisconsin has been involved in as soon as this new coaching staff, arrived there, and they can still continue to be involved in his recruitment. So I don't want to make it seem like Wisconsin's not a player here. I think they are. I think you'll see him pop up on campus a handful of times here. But if I had to say a school right now to certainly watch it, it's Notre Dame. But USC is heavily involved with them. UCLA is heavily involved with them. I know he likes those Florida schools too, specifically, Florida State. So he's a kid that's going to have just about every option available to him. Maybe even those Alabamas, those Georgias will come calling as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in his recruitment moving forward here.
Yeah, and speaking of 2025s, a couple other notable kids to keep an eye on this fall. Obviously, Cooper Catalano and James Flanagan. Flanagan, I think do you have a future cast for Notre Dame in for him as well?
Not yet.
Feels like it's moving that way, at least from the things that I've seen from afar.
Yeah, and just before we popped on, Nate Roberts, I believe his name is, the kid who's committed to Notre Dame in the 2025 class, tight end. He recently decommitted, so that might open the door there. I mean, not that the door was closed, but I mean, that presents another maybe appealing thing for Flanagan, who has those ties to Notre Dame. Obviously, his dad played there. His dad also played for the Packers. That's why he's in Green Bay right now. I was planning to do a little Green Bay double dip on Thursday, Friday, but I was told yesterday that Landon Gauthier is not going to play Week 1 due to a minor injury, nothing of concern there. So I was going to do that, but I got to kind of reshuffle the deck and look what I'm gonna do, because I was going to be able to do that Thursday, Friday, because Bayport plays on Thursday, but now I'll be looking for some more options. So we'll see what happens where I end up on Friday night.
Any other teams? I mean, we've talked about a lot of individual players, but let's talk about some teams. Are there any teams in the state that you think either will dominate or could surprise?
Franklin should be very strong this year, and Franklin and Catholic Memorial play Week 1. So that's certainly a very good matchup, right away. It might be the top matchup. Bayport plays Middleton right away on that Thursday, so that'll be a good matchup as well. Those teams should be good. Franklin, I would imagine, would be one of the better teams in Division One. That's a senior heavy team. They obviously that's the school that Miles Burkett played at 2 years ago, and they have a quarterback that they feel pretty good about and surrounded by a lot of seniors. So I would imagine that they can make a pretty deep run this year. McGuanago should be good. That's a program that's very well solidified. Huge numbers in that program. Nathan Roy is their headliner this year, obviously headed to Minnesota. So, some really good talent just in the area here. And I would say Arrowhead has to be a favorite to win, the Division I crown this year. The two best tackles in the state, that they have there, and, good running back and some really good players on both sides of the ball. So in Division I think it's going to be pretty highly contested. So be a fun season. Try to get out to as many games as I can. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get to a game when I'm up in Madison for a couple Badger games this fall. I might have to head out and see one of those, especially an Arrowhead game in person myself. So we'll see if we can swing that while I am up there. Either way, like you said, John, it's going to be a great fall for Wisconsin high school football. Going to be a great fall for football in general, and we will be here covering everything Wisconsin Badgers on BadgerBlitz TV. I'll be back later this week with Clint Cosgrove to talk recruiting. I went to the Recruiting and Personnel Symposium here in Nashville this past weekend, had over 600 recruiting and personnel staff from programs around the country, including 11 from the Wisconsin Badgers contingent. The entire recruiting department was here. Got to talk with those guys a little bit and talk with coaches and player personnel people, and on-campus recruiting people from all across the country. I learned a ton. So I'm excited to share some of what I learned with you guys later this week. So until then, make sure that you are on BadgerBlitz.com all the time, subscribing to the YouTube page. And anything else from you, John?
Well, I think you and Clint should flip scripts this week, where he plays host and you play the interviewee. I think like you talked about, Matt, like you went to that symposium, and I've heard great things about it. It's been going on for a number of years, and a lot of people attend, so I'm sure you got some great material from that.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I learned a lot just in terms of logistics, just in terms of all of the craziness that is going on with NCAA rules and how it's really straining departments from at every single level, just because of the rule changes that are seeming to come out willy-nilly without any real input from people who work in those departments, who work in compliance, who work in all of that good stuff. So I will have a lot more for you later this week on that with Clint, like I said. So until next time, he's John McNamara, the publisher of Badger Blitz at McNamara Rivals on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. I'm Matt Perkins at _Perko_. And until next time, we will see you in the den.